Name someone hotter than Dame. Welcome to the OddsUSA.com betting podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. You can get Portland at about 6-1 if you think we're going to have a rare 1-8 upset in the NBA quarterfinals. That would be betting hard on the bubble MVP Damian Lillard and against an all-timer LeBron, but come on, you know it's possible. All right, let's welcome in Cody Darwick from OddsUSA.com. Hey, Cody, how are you?
Hey, Brian. Doing well. Happy to be back on and chatting with you about some NBA playoffs here.
You want to crow a little bit? I think you were on the other day, and I think literally everything you picked happened. So go for it.
Yeah, I don't know why I came back on, to be honest with you. I should have just let it be after that. But it really was kind of once in a lifetime appearance there. Come in, key check mode, and yeah, it really was. We last spoke Thursday, so that was the last day of the seeding games for the NBA, and I said, hey, I like these teams that need a win. I think they get it done. I think Dame goes crazy in the late game, and it all came to fruition. It was a nice day for me wagering personally. I hope some of our listeners were able to lock in a couple of those winners, and we'll try and recreate the magic, I guess, today with some picks and the leans and things like that for the NBA playoffs. But yeah, that was a nice day for me. But even this weekend, Bram, did you catch the playing game on Saturday between the Grizzlies and Blazers?
I got to tell you, if I'm LeBron James, this is a nightmare. It really is. It's a nightmare. He is so hot. Lillard is so hot right now, and they took such a deep run a year ago. This feels like it's got the opportunity of an 8-1 upset. It really does.
I think I disagree with you, Bram, and here's why. So this Trailblazers team, they had the must-win game last Thursday, and the Nets took them to the wire. And now the Nets have been feistier than anticipated. They're 5-3 in the bubble. I think they've covered 6 out of those 8 games, but I just don't know defensively how Toronto is going to do this. Now, we'd say the same thing how the Blazers are going to do this. We'd say the same thing about the Lakers defense, right? I think Danny Green is going to be gassed. But who's going to guard LeBron? Like, Melo's been a nice story offensively, but can he really keep up with LeBron? Mario Hezonja, Zach Collins. I mean, he's long, but I don't think he can keep up with LeBron. So I think LeBron's going to have a field day here. The Lakers have struggled in the bubble to date, but I think they're going to be able to get the job done. I think there's a lot of hype for Portland, and rightly so, because they have Dame taking the bubble by storm. But the Lakers, I think, are a bad matchup for them because they just don't have the wings that can guard someone like LeBron James. I just don't know who's going to do it.
You know, I will say this though, because I've been watching a ton of the hockey playoffs, and maybe basketball's very different, but the carryover from the round robin for the teams that were just kind of feeling like they were checked out. And I think the Lakers fall into this category of these games weren't important enough. And you're buying into a switch is going to get flipped on them. It did not happen for very specific, historically good teams like the Capitals and the Penguins. Like, it did not happen for them. And Portland is so red hot right now. It is hard not to believe that if the Lakers are not considerably better than the way they've been leading into this, they are in some trouble here, especially the way Lillard is scoring.
That is an interesting point. I don't follow the NHL closely. But I think you look at the NBA playoffs kind of historically, the team that has 2 of the top 3 guys in the series typically will get the job done throughout the course of a 7-game series.
I agree.
I still think that happens with LeBron and AD. I do think this is AD's first real big opportunity on the big stage here, where he had the nice run a couple years back in New Orleans. They actually did beat this Blazers team, but this is big moment for him. As much as LeBron, I think a lot of people are talking about, hey, is this one of his last chances to really win a ring here? All these different things, but this is AD's first real moment. If this Lakers team's only going to go as far as he really takes them, especially if you look at future matchups versus the Clippers, and if they were to get past them, it's really got to be on AD. So I think this Lakers team, yes, they've been struggling. But reading the tea leaves, I like that they seem to really like all get along with each other pretty well off the court. So I think they came in. I think they wanted to figure out they're working some new guys into the rotation, which scares me a bit in terms of Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith. And it's like, is this really happening? Like, we're looking at a team with these guys, Dwight Howard, Javale McGee. Like, it's pretty wild that that's one of the favorites to win it all. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting series, to say the least. But just looking at the games today here, I love, even before we get to the picks, what are your thoughts on these day games? I mean, hockey's doing the same thing too, right? Where they start at 3 and they basically just own the weekdays at this point.
I mean, it's very unusual. I mean, I can't imagine the Jazz and Nuggets are playing a game at 1:30 in the afternoon, a playoff game. And for them too, I know they've been down there for a couple of weeks, but it actually is really 11:30 in the morning for both of them. So like, this feels very NCAA tournament. I'm not complaining about it. I love it. Mm-hmm. And in that particular case with that series, I'm laying off of it because I think it's too evenly matched. I think it's too hard to tell. And that's the one to me that is a total toss-up, Jazz and Nuggets.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually, just looking for the game today, the Nuggets are 4.5-point favorites. Looking at points that one of our partners at OddsUSA, so if you're in New Jersey, Indiana, Iowa, you can go ahead, place a wager there. I think the news over the weekend, I think, went a little under the radar in terms of Mike Conley. He had to leave the bubble for the birth of his child. I think he's going to miss at least the first 2 games here. Now, he hasn't been the same Mike Conley we saw with Marc Gasol on some of those Memphis teams from a few years ago, but he's still an important playmaker for them, especially with Bogdanovich out for injury. A lot of this is going to fall on Donovan Mitchell to be the playmaker, up for shots, and I think this Jazz offense becomes really stagnant when that's the case. So I like Denver a lot, actually, in this series. Nuggets have won all 4 matchups versus them this year. They kind of had the crazy game in the bubble about a week ago. The Nuggets, they do have some injury concerns of their own. Gary Harris and Will Barton are out in this game, but they've played the greater part of the bubble without those guys. Jokic has done well versus Rudy Gobert this season. He's averaging 29 points, 9 rebounds against this Jazz team. And the Nuggets have kind of had Michael Porter Jr., who was a high draft pick. He was one of the top prospects when he was at Missouri. Got hurt, basically missed the year, has more or less not had a non-existent NBA career until the bubble. And the guy comes on the scene in a massive way. He's averaged 19 a game in Orlando. He actually made the all-bubble second team. And for context, he played 12 games prior to that. So the Nuggets have a lot of guys. 4.5 isn't a ton. So I like the Nuggets a lot in this first game here. I like them in the series, and I like them, especially with the Jazz without Mike Conley.
The 4 o'clock tip is Raptors and Nets game 1. I don't give Brooklyn much of a chance in this series. I would be shocked if it goes past 5, honestly. Mainly just because the Nets just don't have their players. And I agree with you. They've been impressive in playing the way they have with the group that they have. But if you don't believe in Toronto now, you'll never believe in them. And this is they just should overpower Brooklyn. I don't like 9.5 in a game 1. I'm not sitting here thinking like the Nets are the right side on something like that, but 9.5 feels a little bit strong for game 1 of an NBA series. You feel the same way?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I don't like the spread because the Nets have been the little rascals of the bubble. Like you can't just kill them. They beat the Bucks. We talked about it versus the Blazers. I went toe to toe with them. They're feisty. So the angle I like in this one, and I was looking, one of our partners, BetMGM, they have kind of boosted odds parlay for the Nuggets and Raptors to win today. It's even money. And now for context, the Nuggets are minus 216 on the money line, so betting 200, $16 to win 100, and the Raptors are heavy favorites. You'd have to bet essentially $551 to win 100. So to get that at even money, I think is a really nice angle here. And I even like looking at series prices too. I think this Raptors team is going to sweep the Nets. they had really nothing to play for in the bubble, and they went 7-1. I just think they're rolling. They have one of the best coaches in the NBA, and Nick Nurse. The pieces just fit so well together, and I think they feel a little disrespected, right? They're still the defending champs. Their best player left. They're still the 2 seed in the East. And I feel like Vegas still isn't fully giving them all the credit they deserve. And for the Raptors to sweep the Nets, it pays out plus 130 at PointsBet.
Well, I think it's the star thing.
That.
It's the star thing. It's to your point, and I agree with you. Typically, the teams that end up deep in the playoffs or in the finals have top 10 players on their team. They don't. And that's why I think people just keep pushing them off to, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. The closest thing that this looks like, and I'm starting to somewhat believe that they have a legitimate shot to get back to the finals now, is you got to go back to like the early 2000s with the Pistons, where they had a great team, but they had no star on it, like no star. They had really good players, but they had no LeBron or KD or Kobe or anything like that on their team. And that's what the Raptors are. They are deep. Their starting 5 is probably as good as anybody's, with the exception of they don't have a freak. And that's why I think people are against them. But at this juncture, the way Milwaukee is kind of tiptoed into this whole thing, I would not be surprised if Toronto ends up in the final against whoever from the West.
Yeah, and even I'm very much in agreement with you. I've been banging on the Raptors drums the last few weeks here. And I do feel like there's still pretty good value to be had in betting on them. To come out of the East, they're plus 380. Now, for reference, I think the Bucks at BetMGM PointsBet, I forget exactly which one. They're like minus 150, minus 160. So Vegas still very much likes them. And even the Raptors to win it all, right? I still think this is unlikely. I really think it's the Clippers to lose in terms of this title this year. But they're 12-1. So even if the Raptors, if you think they can win the East, as long as they get to the finals at 12-1 odds, you can still hedge in a really nice profit for yourself there. And yeah, I'm with you. I think that Pistons analogy is spot on. This team has a lot of talent. And in this bubble situation, I think we're going to have a lot of quick turnarounds and teams that have a lot of depth and good coaching, I think are going to be able to kind of reap rewards in that sense.
Yeah.
So I like Toronto there. And then looking at the third game today, which I think is like a 6 o'clock tip, 6:30 tip.
Yeah.
Celtics, Sixers. I was talking to my brother about this yesterday. Just so sick of this Sixers team. It feels like, especially in the betting world, they've been overhyped, and I personally have fallen victim to them a handful of times. Now they're without their second best player. Simmons is kind of out indefinitely here. The Celtics actually have all of their guys healthy, all their top guys healthy for the first time in what feels like a while. We'll see what Kemba actually looks like, Hayward. Obviously Jaylen Brown and Tatum have emerged as true studs in the league. I love the Celtics in this series. As long as the Sixers are around, I'm happy to fade them because I still think they get too much love. They're minus 5.5 today. I'm a big fan. The Celtics, they're 12-5 against the spread, the last 17 against the Sixers. And Bram, what do you think about this? I like the Celtics in 5, and you can get that at PointsBet at plus 235. I think Embiid wins 1. The Sixers were really relying on that home court advantage. They don't have that.
Embiid is going to score a ton of points. They don't have anything to stop him, but I don't think the Sixers are in any way, shape, or form coached the same way the Celtics are. They're clearly not as deep, and I love Boston to win this series. And you got better than me because I got -6 on the boards I was looking at. But I think Boston sends a message today. And if you go look at what they've been doing here, don't look at the last game they played because they sat literally everybody against the Wizards. They're scoring like 120 to 130 points a game already. So I don't like the Sixers at all. In fact, I'm with you. I can't see a sweep, but this thing doesn't go. If this thing gets to 6, I would be surprised.
Yeah. It'll be a fun one, just because these two teams do have a history with each other. Obviously, Horford kind of switched teams here, but this one would be more fun and interesting, in my opinion, if we were in a non-COVID world and we actually had true road games for this Celtics team in Philly because they are a really hard team to beat there. But having this be in the bubble, I just don't see it for this Sixers team. I think this is the end of the road for Brett Brown. I thought it was the end of the road for him last year, and then he got another look this season. The season's kind of been a walking train wreck. So I think this may be his farewell wish here, this game.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah. And then the late game tonight, we got Clippers, Mavs. Clippers are -6 here. I mean, Mavs and Luka are one of the most fun teams to watch. I don't see it for them either, and this makes me nervous here, Bram, because I love all the favorites here, and you can parlay them on the money line, and we have some big favorites as we mentioned, the Raptors and all these different people. It pays out plus 250. Which of these teams do you think would spoil that a money line parlay of all the favorites? It seems like you think the Jazz would be the.
I think the Jazz are the most. I think the Jazz are the most dangerous one. With Dallas, if you go off of the returns of how they've played since they've come back, they've played actually mainly playoff teams, and they've lost the majority of the games they played. They just lost to Portland. They lost to Phoenix twice. They lost to Houston. They got blown out by the Clippers already. I mean, if you go off of just recent results, you have a hard time buying into them to knock off LA. And while I agree with you, they're fun. And these games will probably end up being high scoring because Luka goes off a couple times. They're going to be high scoring games. I don't see any way that the Clippers lose this series.
No, the Clippers are 4-0 against the spread their last 4 versus the Mavs. It comes down to defense for me. The Clippers have so many guys they can throw out there between Kawhi, Paul George, Beverly. I mean, Beverly is kind of the perfect guy to just stick on Doncic and have him follow him around and nag him for a series. You can't slow him down, but you can do what you can there to somewhat stop him. But I think that's going to be a quick one. But yeah, it just kind of looking at the rest of these series for tomorrow, we hit on Lakers, Blazers. If you had to choose one of these kind of upset picks to win a series, what are you looking at? I know I have my eye on one series in particular.
Well, the Magic have no chance against the Bucks. If that's not a sweep, I'd be surprised. I really do. I really do think the Blazers, and maybe I'll be completely wrong tomorrow. The Lakers just thump them. I would not be surprised. Very competitive series, and the Portland gets them to a game 7, and then all of a sudden, watch out, and you don't know what you're in. Heat Pacers to me feels like Miami, in 6, something like that. And I guess the one, and again, this is one of those where the talent should kind of stand out and be an obvious pick, but I don't see anything on the board for Thunder Rockets at this point. I think the Thunder, not unlike Toronto, have been completely overlooked the entire year, but end up happening to be pretty deep. And I got a funny feeling about this because Harden's had very weird early exits in the past. And I wouldn't be surprised here if they frustrate them to the point where they don't play well for a couple of games, give a couple away, and the Thunder somehow steal it in 7. I would not be surprised by that at all.
Yeah, Brown, great minds think alike here. I like OKC over Houston. The thing that makes me nervous about this is everywhere I read around, a lot of people are in agreement that this feels like the trendy underdog pick, which the NBA is anything like the NFL. That never really works. But the thing is here, a couple of reasons I like the Thunder. Westbrook's out kind of indefinitely. We don't know exactly when he's coming back. And even if he does come back with this injury that may linger, he kind of needs to be at full force. In my opinion, if this Rockets team is going to be firing on all cylinders, Eric Gordon has a history of injuries as well. And the Thunder have had success against Houston this season. They won 2 out of 3. Westbrook played in both of those losses for Houston. So maybe I guess you could play devil's advocate and say, oh, maybe without him they'll be better. But I don't see that. The Thunder is 6-1 against the spread the last 7 against the Rockets. And you mentioned it. The Raptors are set up similarly to this Thunder team where they have just a lot of guys that can get buckets. CP3, I wrote him off, to be honest, as soon as the Thunder team, as soon as he got traded to the Thunder. I think there's also the plot line of him being bitter about all of that, because I think as soon as this trade happened, people quickly jumped to, and myself included, like, okay, where is he gonna get bought out or traded to the Lakers or the Knicks and something like this, and kind of limp to the finish line to end his career here? But he's had a great season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best young guards in the league. Dennis Schroeder, a guy who's kind of been much maligned throughout his career, has actually played well for them, and Billy Donovan's a good coach. He won a couple titles at Florida. It seems like he's starting to come into his own as an NBA coach. So at plus 120 is what I'm seeing them at on some of our partners here for the series. I like that. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah.
I think I just don't know. If Harden gets into foul trouble a couple of these games or struggles, you never know what you're going to get with this Rockets team, right? They're going to shoot the 43s a game.
Enjoying the podcast and feel like taking advantage of our experts' advice? Or maybe you think you know better and want to fade everything you just heard. Whatever your pleasure, place all your bets with OddsUSA.com. That's right, at OddsUSA.com, we have everything your sports betting heart desires. From game odds covering the spread, over-unders, and money lines, to futures betting as well as prop bets and best bets. OddsUSA.com is your one-stop shop for placing all your sports bets this season. When it comes to legal online sports betting, OddsUSA.com has you covered. Head on over to our website right now and find the best way to make the most money. You can do that by easily comparing which sportsbook is best for your bet, then just click on the action button and put your money where your mouth is. The best bets and deals take only a minute to complete, so head on over right now to OddsUSA.com and take advantage of all our offers today. That's ODDSUSA.com and get started today. And happy betting.
I can't remember the last time I've seen this, which is the odds on the futures of NBA champion are tied between three teams. I don't think I can't. And granted, this is a really weird year where everything shut down and they came back together. But you get the same odds on the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Bucks. There's no favorite. There's no favorite. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it is bizarre for the NBA, right? Especially you think about it historically. It always feels like there's always clearly at least two top dogs. I mean, recently it's been the Warriors and everyone else. And then before that, right, we had a mixing. We had the Heat, we had the Spurs, the Lakers in the early 2000s. There's always a top dog, and typically that team does end up winning. This year is very interesting, and the added layer of no home court advantage makes it even more interesting. I still think the cream's going to rise to the top here. I think I really the Clippers are the team to beat. If assuming all these teams stay healthy, they have the depth. Defensively, they have these wing defenders. Like, I mean, Kawhi is as good as it gets. Paul George, I'd say, is also a top 10 wing defender. Patrick Beverley is probably top 3 guard defender in the NBA. You have Doc Rivers, the head coach, that's gotten it done before on the big stage. I just really think they're the team to beat. If they can get everyone together, and that's the thing too, right, Bram? Like, they're pretty much one of the favorites, but we haven't really seen all these guys together yet. Lou Williams obviously had the incident with him. Montrezl Harrell's kind of been in and out, so we'll see what happens when all the pieces are together. But if I have to do one bet with my life on the line, I'm going with Clippers. But where do you see it?
So, I mean, for value, I can't believe I'm saying this, but for value, I would take the Raptors and take a shot because I do feel like it's a 2-team race in the East. Not to be, disrespectful to Miami or Boston, who I think have an outside shot, to be there in the end. Toronto, there's something about going on there. This first series is going to be too easy for them. They're going to get through. And if Milwaukee is just not what they were in the regular season, and Toronto seems to be taking this very seriously, I wouldn't be surprised if they're there. And then all of a sudden you've got odds on a team to win a championship. And so that's the one I would take a shot on. I don't see value in the West because I do think it's going to be the Lakers or the Clippers in the end. And I don't see value in betting that right now. But I do see value in taking a shot on Toronto. And if we get Toronto and the Clippers in the finals, that's a hell of a storyline. So, that'll be amazing.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And it's kind of crazy looking at PointsBet, their title odds right now. The Rockets and the Raptors are both 12-1 odds to win it all. That makes no sense to me.
I agree.
Rockets, we just spoke about it. Westbrook is out. They have a tough first round matchup versus OKC where they're barely even favorite. The Raptors should have pretty much a cakewalk through the first round. And the East is not nearly as deep, in my opinion.
You give me 25-1 on the Rockets, which I think is a more reasonable number right now, just based on the competition in the West. I'd consider it, but anything remotely close to 10-1 doesn't feel right because I can't buy into them. But more than double digits to 1 on Toronto when they are clearly the second best team in the East right now, that's a value bet to me. And while it's like hard for me to sit here and think that they're going to end up winning, I would rather put my money there and go, I think that they're in the Eastern Conference Finals bare minimum. So you tell me if I'm off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope listeners see that value and lock that in now because after they sweep the Nets, that's going to go down. It is crazy, these odds here. Rockets are 12-1. The Nuggets are 25-1. That disparity is so significant. If anything, the Nuggets have added more guys to the mix.
Agreed.
With Michael Porter Jr. and the folk here that's become Bol. So that makes no sense to me. And looking at other first round series futures, I saw this promoted parlay at BetMGM that I also think is interesting. So if you're in New Jersey, Indiana, or Colorado, you can lock this in. If you like the Raptors to sweep the Nets, which we've already hammered home, and you also think the Bucks sweep the Magic, you can parlay the two of those at plus 340.
Huh.
So also just a little something to think about there.
Yeah.
That is certainly pretty favorable odds for two teams that are vastly superior to their opponents with no road games or travel in the mix.
Backed by one of the biggest online gambling companies in the world, OddsUSA.com is your one-stop shop when placing a bet this season. In partnership with the best sports books across the U.S., including DraftKings, FanDuel, and many, many others, with OddsUSA.com, you are sure to find the best deal before placing your next bet. Head on over to OddsUSA.com right now and find the bet that works best for you. Whether you want to bet the spread, an over-under, or the money line, OddsUSA.com has you covered with all the latest deals and promotions from across the online sports betting industry. Find the deal that's best for you and place your bet right now. Or read previews and betting tips from our team of experts and then put your money where your mouth is. Whatever your pleasure, go to OddsUSA.com right now and get started today. That's OddsUSA.com, ODDSUSA.com, and place your bets now. Good luck.
All right, let's shift gears for a minute. You got to toot your horn earlier. My closing thought on the podcast last week was just hammer the Dodgers this weekend. They are scoring a ton of runs. Their record wasn't reflective of how offensively powerful they'd been, and they were about to take on some of the worst pitching in Major League Baseball. And over the weekend, they went 4-0 and scored 32 runs in 4 games. So I'm feeling very good about my feeling on the Dodgers. What are you seeing in Major League Baseball as we turn? Which is shocking. We're almost at the midpoint of the restart. What are you seeing in Major League Baseball right now?
It is bizarre, just quickly on that point. Like the trade deadline, I think, is in 2 weeks. It's like it's we're in bizarre world to say the least here. But in terms of Major League Baseball, the thing that's been shocking to me as this season goes on, and you hit on it with the Dodgers and one of their guys that's starting to catch fire here, Mookie Betts. They scoop up the second best player in baseball at the age of 27. They don't even have to really trade any of their top prospects to get him. Essentially, the Red Sox are able to dump him and David Price's contract. Still makes no sense to me. So I think the Dodgers just will continue to kind of roll here, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. But on the flip side of the coin, like this Red Sox team has been pretty pathetic. The Yankees won last night. They won 9 in a row against the Red Sox. Like this Red Sox team won the World Series a couple of years ago, and this is where we're at. It seemed like we were setting up for like a really awesome rivalry between the Yankees Red Sox, kind of reinvigorated. We had the whole Joe Kelly thing a couple of years ago when he was there. but Judge and all of that. And I feel like we got gist of that plot line because the Red Sox were like, here, take them, send them to LA.
Yeah, I agree. And I was not surprised by that turn. I'll give you one that's going to turn too this weekend, and it's close to home for me, which is the World Series champion Nationals, who struggled mightily over the last week and have an under 500 record. And everyone here is pointing to, oh, they were bad in the beginning part of the last season. It's not the same. Steven Strasburg might get shut down. They don't have the same lineups that they used to have, and they start a set in Atlanta. They start a set in Atlanta tonight, and they're throwing a pitcher out there as an ERA around 10. Atlanta is going to win at least 2 of 3 and hammer the Braves tonight. There's going to be a message sent. There's going to be separation. Atlanta's going to win this division, and Washington, if it wasn't for an expanded playoff, I don't think would really have a legitimate shot to get in it this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Juan Soto is really the lone bright spot.
That's
so
it.
Far.
Yes, that's it.
He's amazing. He's one of the most exciting young players to watch. His home run hit against the Mets last week, I think it's still going. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And the thing that's amazing to me is that we're 21 games into season, kind of give or take, obviously depending on who you are. And the Baltimore Orioles are still 3 games above 500.
I know.
They're 7-3 in their last 10. I mean, you're in the DC area, Bram. Is this for real? Like, I don't get it.
It's
we just start fading Baltimore hard.
It's the definition of an aberration. So they are, if they get in the playoffs, they are the magic of the baseball playoffs. Like, anyone cannot wait to get them if that's what it's going to be. But listen, they've had it's not even bad seasons. It is ridiculously ugly seasons the last couple of years for them. So give them a smile up there. Baltimore will let them have it. All right, Cody, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Bram.
In the NHL quarters, we have a bunch of upsets with the champs needing overtime to get back into their series with Vancouver, the 2018 winner Washington appearing completely out of gas against the Islanders, and the Bruins, who came to the bubble a 1 seed and entered the quarters a 4. But goaltender Tuukka Rask left the team, turning over the net to Yaroslav Halak, who's been around this block for over a dozen years. And it looks like it might be just what Boston is going to end up needing. It's not like he didn't play very much during the regular season. Halak got 29 starts. And in this bubble, his save percentage and goals against, they're just about a tick worse than they were during the regular season. So there appears to be almost no drop-off here. With Rask obviously elsewhere, figuratively and literally, the Bees' net is probably in better hands. And thus, for me, it means they're going to survive Carolina and they're going to advance. Bet Boston. And that will do it for this episode. We'll see you Monday on the OddsUSA.com betting podcast.
Empire.